The cold in the Colorado Territory did not just bite, it cut. The winter wind scraped across the high basin like a knife, carrying frozen grit that stung the skin and made the world feel empty and hostile. Down in the valley sat the small town of Blackwood, a place that seemed to cling to the earth out of fear the wind might tear it away. The few wooden buildings leaned against each other for strength, while the muddy street froze into ruts as hard as iron. Far above the town, the land rose into dark pines and deep shadows. This was where Elias Ward rode, alone, cold, and burning with fever. His coat was stiff with trail dust, and his horse, Banjo, moved with slow, tired steps. Elias had once been a scout for the Union Army, a man good at reading tracks, storms, and danger. Now he was just a drifting hired hand who had taken a bullet for a railroad surveyor who barely thanked him. The infection in his ribs throbbed like fire. The wound was red and swollen, and Elias knew the signs. He needed water, warmth, and a place to hide his firelight from outlaws or whoever still pursued him. When the trail opened into a small meadow tucked beneath a cliff, he slid from the saddle. His knees buckled, and he grabbed the stirrup to steady himself. "Easy now," he muttered, though his breath shook. There was a stream nearby, running fast and black in the dying light. Elias knew what he needed to do. He stripped off his clothes, shirt stiff with dried blood, trousers heavy with dirt, and stepped into the edge of the freezing water. The shock hit him like a hammer. He gasped, teeth clenched as he scrubbed the wound clean. He washed his clothes and draped them across the rocks by a small fire he managed to start. Then he lay down near the flames, wrapped in one thin blanket. The cold pushed in from every side, fever pushed from the inside. His thoughts blurred. The fire popped. Coyotes howled in the distance. His memories slipped back to battlefields he wished he could forget. "Hold the line," he whispered into the dark, his mind trapped between the past and the present. His blanket slid off. His skin burned with fever. He thrashed weakly, naked in the snow-chilled wind, unaware that he was slipping closer to death. But farther up the ridge, someone saw the smoke. Willa Cain paused in the shadows of the trees. 24 years old, she looked carved from the land itself. Sun-browned skin, sharp cheekbones, hair tied back with leather, and clothes built for survival, not style. People in Blackwood called her wild, cursed, feral. They whispered lies about her living with tribes, about her losing her mind in the mountains. But Willa knew the truth. She had survived things they never could. She moved silently toward the smoke, every step careful. When she reached the meadow, she stayed in the shadows, watching. Only one horse, a dying fire, no camp set up, no signs of danger. Then she stepped forward and saw him. A man lay naked on the ground, his skin slick with sweat despite the cold. His body was scarred. Old battles, old pain, and a fresh wound on his ribs glowed angry and infected. His clothes hung frozen on the rocks nearby. He was dying. Willa's first instinct was simple: leave. Strangers meant trouble. Men meant danger. She had lived too long alone to forget that. But something about the scene made her pause. The scars showed a man who had survived hardship, not caused it. The fevered mumbling sounded like regret, not cruelty. And the canteen by his fire was stamped U.S. Army. He was wounded and alone, just like she had once been. Willa cursed under her breath. "Damn it," she whispered. "I can't leave you here." Moving fast, she knelt beside him and touched his forehead. He was burning up. When she shook him, he only groaned nonsense about a war long over. "You are not dying out here," she said firmly. She wrapped him in her heavy buffalo robe, gathered his frozen clothes, and saddled her horse. Then came the hard part. Elias was tall and solid, but Willa was stronger than she looked. With a fierce grunt, she hauled him upright. He cried out in pain, too weak to fight. "Up," she ordered, her voice sharp with determination. She carried him to her horse and draped him over the saddle like he weighed nothing more than a sack of grain. She tied him securely, gathered both horses, and began the long climb to her hidden cabin in the high timber. Snow blew across the ridge. The trail was steep and dangerous, but she never slowed. Willa Cain did not fear the mountains. The mountains feared her. At last, she reached her cabin, a small, sturdy shelter built from logs and stone, hidden from the world. She dragged Elias inside, lit the lantern, and set to work. She washed his wound, treated it with salves she had made herself, and bound him tightly. When he thrashed in fever, she tied his wrists to keep him from tearing the stitches open. Only when he finally lay still did she sit beside him, rifle across her knees. The wind screamed outside, shaking the cabin walls. Inside, she watched him with a gaze both fierce and troubled. "You gave me no choice," she whispered. "You lay down in the snow to die. I claimed you from the mountain." She touched the hair at his forehead, her voice low and steady. "You're mine to keep alive now." Quote. And as the storm erased their tracks, sealing them away from the world, the wild frontier girl kept watch over the man who had slept without clothes and woken under her protection. The storm raged through the night, hammering against the log walls of Willa's cabin. Inside, the air was warm from the fire, but Elias Ward felt trapped between burning heat and freezing cold. He opened his eyes for moments at a time, seeing nothing but shadows and strange faces from memories that no longer made sense. Every time he tried to move, a sharp pain cut through his ribs. He did not know he had been carried from death. He did not know someone was watching him. But Willa Cain watched everything. She sat by the fire with her rifle resting across her knees. Her clothes were still damp from hauling him through the snow. Her hair clung to her neck and her boots steamed near the fire. She didn't look away from him for a long time. She needed to know if he was safe, if he was the kind of man who would try to hurt her once he woke. When his eyes opened again, she stood up and walked to his side. Her steps were light, almost silent. "You're not dying," she said in a calm voice. "Not tonight." Elias blinked at her, his vision blurred, and he tried to sit up, but she pushed gently on his shoulder. "Stop," she said. "You'll tear your stitches." He looked down at his chest. The bandages were clean, tight, and held together with steady hands. He looked back at her, trying to understand. "Where am I?" His voice cracked. "My cabin," Willa answered. "You were freezing in the snow. You would have been dead before morning if I hadn't found you." His mind fought through fog. He remembered the stream, the fire, the fever, nothing after that. He touched the blanket over him and noticed how soft and heavy it felt. "That your robe?" he asked weakly. "It was," she said. "Now it's keeping you alive." He studied her through half-lidded eyes. Her face was strong and sun-browned, her expression steady but guarded. She moved with the confidence of someone who trusted herself more than anyone else in the world. He didn't know what to make of her. She didn't look like the town women he remembered. She looked like the mountains themselves, wild, sharp, alive. "You carried me here?" he asked. She nodded once. "You weren't exactly helpful." He let out a tired breath. "Why?" Willa hesitated. Her fingers tapped lightly on the rifle. "I don't know," she said. "Maybe because someone once saved me when no one else would. Maybe because I can't stand watching a man die when I know I can stop it." A long silence settled between them. The fire cracked softly. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, finding comfort in the warmth. "You tied my hands," he said, opening them again. "You were fighting the fever," she explained. "You kept reaching for your wound. You would have killed yourself in your sleep." He nodded slowly. He understood. She had done what she had to do. "What's your name?" he asked. "Willa," she said. "Willa Cain." He repeated it softly, as if testing the sound. "Elias Ward." She already knew. She had checked the name etched on his canteen while tending to him. But hearing him say it made something inside her settle. "You're safe here," Willa said, "but don't try to leave until you can stand. And don't reach for my rifle. I don't miss." He gave a weak half-smile. "Wouldn't dream of it." Willa stepped back and began preparing a small pot of broth. She moved with purpose, careful but fast. Elias watched her even when he pretended not to. She had a way of filling the cabin with her presence, quiet but strong. As she worked, the wind screamed across the roof. Elias flinched at the sound. "You get used to it," Willa said. "I'm not sure I belong in a place like this." "You do now," she answered without turning around. When she brought the bowl to him, she fed him slowly, making sure he could swallow. Her touch was steady. Her eyes were sharp and watchful. Elias felt a strange mix of gratitude and confusion. No one had cared for him like this in a long time. "Thank you," he whispered. Willa didn't smile, but something in her expression softened. "You're not healed yet," she said. "Don't thank me until you can walk." Quote. The storm kept howling, but inside that small cabin, something quieter began to grow. Elias felt it even through the fever. Willa felt it too, though she pushed it down. When she finally stepped back and set the bowl aside, she said, "You lived because I chose you. The mountains claimed you first, but I took you back. That makes you my responsibility." Elias wanted to argue, but sleep pulled him under again. His breathing steadied. His face relaxed. Willa watched him for a long time, then stood and checked the door, the windows, and the rifles hung on the wall. Danger lived everywhere in the frontier. Men, animals, storms, memories. But watching Elias breathe, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She was not alone, and that scared her more than any storm. The storm passed by morning, leaving the world white and silent. Snow clung to the pines outside Willa's cabin, and the air felt sharp and clean. Inside, Elias slept with easier breaths. His fever had broken some time before dawn. Sweat cooled on his skin, and his face no longer twisted with pain. Willa sat on a small wooden stool near the window, sharpening her knife with smooth strokes. She watched him from time to time, studying the way his chest rose and fell. He looked different now. Less like a stranger, more like someone fate had dropped into her hands. But trusting fate was dangerous. She had learned that long ago. When Elias finally stirred, she set the knife aside. "You awake?" she asked. He nodded slowly, pushing himself up with care. The blanket fell from his shoulders, and he grabbed it again, pulling it close. His cheeks warmed with embarrassment when he realized just how little he had been wearing when she found him. "You!" he cleared his throat. "You saved me without my clothes?" "That was your choice," Willa said plainly. "I just stopped it from being your last choice." He coughed a laugh, then winced at the pain in his ribs. She moved closer, her expression tight with concern. "Does it hurt?" "Only when I breathe," he said. "That's going to be a problem," she answered. She helped him sit up straighter, and he didn't miss the steady strength in her hands. When he looked into her eyes, he felt a strange spark. Something warm, something steady. "You look better," she said. "That's because you kept me alive." He paused. "I owe you more than I can pay." Willa stepped back. "You don't owe me anything, not yet." The yet hung in the air. Elias glanced around the cabin. It was small but sturdy, a stone hearth, a single bed, a shelf filled with herbs and salves. A world built for one person. "Do you live out here alone?" he asked. "For 3 years." "Why?" Willa tightened the straps on her coat before answering. "Because people take things, and I got tired of losing." Elias watched her face. He saw the truth in her eyes, a deep hurt she didn't hide but never explained. "You don't have to tell me more," he said gently. "I know," she replied. She walked to the door, pulled on her boots, and grabbed her rifle. "I need to check my traps," she said. "You'll be alone for a few hours. Stay in bed. Don't touch your stitches." He nodded. "I'll be here." Quote. Willa opened the door, stepped into the icy morning, and disappeared into the trees. The quiet inside the cabin felt heavy. Elias lay back against the pillow, letting warmth seep into his bones. He thought about how close he had come to dying. How strange it was that a woman who lived like a legend in the mountains had chosen to save him. Hours passed. The fire crackled. The wind hushed. But when the door opened again, Willa didn't walk in. She stumbled in, Snow dusted her hair. Her sleeve was torn. A long scratch ran across her cheek. She slammed the door shut and dropped the metal trap she had been carrying. Elias pushed himself up, alarmed. "Willa, what happened?" "Wolves," she said, breathing hard. 3 of them. His heart kicked hard. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head and grabbed a cloth to wipe the blood from her cheek. "Just close." She tried to reach for her torn sleeve, but her hand shook. Elias saw it. She did not show weakness often, and the sight of her trembling made something fierce rise inside him. "Come here," he said. She hesitated. "Willa," he said softly, "let me help." This time she stepped toward him. He cleaned the scratch on her cheek. His touch was gentle, and she didn't flinch. She watched him with steady eyes, studying the way his hands moved, the care he took, the quiet strength beneath the weakness of his healing body. "You shouldn't have been out there alone," he said. "I always am," she replied. "You don't have to be," he said. Willa froze at the words. Her breath caught. She looked away, her voice low. "I don't want to need anyone." Elias reached for her hand. She didn't pull back. "Needing someone isn't weakness," he said. "Dying alone in the snow is." She let out a shaky breath. Her fingers tightened around his. The cabin felt warmer suddenly. Not from the fire, from them. Willa sat beside him on the bed, her voice quiet. "When I saw you lying out there, I felt something I thought I buried," she said. "Fear. Fear of losing someone I didn't even know yet." Elias held her hand gently. "You didn't lose me." "No," she whispered. "I claimed you." Quote. The words were soft, but full of something deep, something the mountains had carved into her heart. Elias smiled, slow and warm. "Well," he said, "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere until you tell me to." Willa looked at him, really looked, and for the first time in years she let the walls around her heart ease open. Outside, the mountains stood silent. Inside the cabin, 2 people who had lived too long alone sat close enough to feel each other's warmth. Elias had slept without clothes in the snow, but he had woken under the protection of a wild frontier girl. And now he was hers, at least for as long as the mountains allowed.